good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. I am Mark Sugiyama from Eclectic Arts. I'm based here in Seattle, Washington, and it is Friday, February 19th, 2021. And thank you so much for joining me. Hopefully you're having a nice Friday night into your weekend. And yeah, again, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. I have a few things that are coming up that I'd like to talk about before I get to my guest. And so one of them is on Sunday night at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here on the West Coast. I have my first, what I'm calling a music symposium with 3 up-and-coming female artists. And that includes Mariah Belgrade, Sydney Sherwood, and Aviv. So I'm really looking forward to that. If you're familiar with the Fun Table sessions that I've done in the past, it's kind of built off of that model, but it'll be a little bit more structured because I do want to talk about their careers and things that they've encountered in the industry and what we can look forward to. And all 3 of them are amazingly talented. So it's going to be fun having them all together at the same time. And we'll talk about things like that. And I always forget to do this. Good grief. Let's see, there we go. Hi, Industrial Girl. Good to see you. Happy Friday to you. Friday evening down in East LA. And to see on Monday morning at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, those that have watched these kind of know that they're always early because the guest is down in South Africa. But in my case, it's 7 a.m., so I'll be up bright and early for the Soap Girls. We have our February edition installment, whatever you want to call it, of our virtual interviews that started back in October. So I'm super stoked to be talking to them again, and they're never boring. they're never. I can never actually predict what's going to happen with those shows because we go off on all kinds of tangents. So that's going to be at 7 a.m. If that's too early for you, yeah, the Soap Girls. So that is confirmed. If that's too early for you, then you can always catch the replay on either Facebook or YouTube, preferably YouTube. And then also on Tuesday, the 23rd at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Nikki Stringfield from the Iron Maidens is going to be stopping by, virtually, of course. And she is an amazing guitar player. She's actually playing a gig in Arizona this weekend with her other band. And I'm really looking forward to talking to Nikki. I have not had a chance to interview her before. So that's going to be on Tuesday. And then there's right now a bit of a gap. And the reason I say that is only things get scheduled last minute, opportunities kind of present themselves. So after Tuesday next week, that I don't have anything confirmed, but there's some things that are in play right now. So we'll kind of see what happens. So if you check me out as Eclectic Arts Media, one word, on Instagram, that's where I post all the announcements first, and then I move them over to Facebook, and then all that kind of thing. So that's where all the things are at. And yeah, the Iron Maidens, they're great. I've seen them a few times as well. So it's going to be fun having Nikki on Tuesday to talk about that band and her other band and her solo work and everything. So anyway, let's get to tonight's guest because I'm really excited to talk to her. Today, my guest is a musician who brings authenticity to everything she does. Her music is not defined by genre, therefore making it limitless. Her latest single is I'll Play Daddy, which I just showed a small clip from in the intro. Please welcome to the Eclectic Arts Virtual Studio, Juliet Hawkins.
Hi.
Hi, Juliet. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining me tonight on this this Friday evening. Oh, this is going to be fun. So I've been kind of mentioning, we were kind of talking about pre-show. How are things down in your neck of the woods in terms of where things are at, COVID, lockdown, pandemic-wise? Are you able to do some things, or kind of like hasn't changed much?
I think Tennessee is probably pretty approaching this whole thing pretty lax in comparison to some other states. But we've managed to move at half capacity and be able to have a few gigs here and there. So I feel like I've reaped the benefits, but it's definitely on the more lax side of things.
Okay. Yeah. And in some ways, I kind of wish I had that up here as we were talking about, as I would love to be able to go see a show if it was 50% capacity, or just anything that was deemed safe enough to be able to do. And we'll get there at some point. I just don't know when Seattle's going to join Tennessee. Or like you said, maybe I need to make a trip somewhere.
Yeah, come visit.
That would be nice. I've actually never been down there, and I have a friend that lives in, I want to say it's Jackson, Tennessee. I don't know where that is to Nashville, but he's been in Jackson for a while.
Cool.
So yeah, maybe I need to make that happen. But so as I was listening to your music and kind of doing my due diligence in terms of your background and everything, what I really liked was that you're not really. I don't think there's anything that can define you. You kind of like do things like how you want to do them. It seems like you incorporate different types of music and styles, and your approach to it, I really really like. So, is that something that was very very intentional, or just kind of organically happened, or both?
You know, I never really fit in a box much of my life. So it kind of is par for the course, I guess, with my genre. Um, but I do like to keep it fresh and not be afraid to dive into multiple levels of whether it's a little bit of hip hop or whether there's a pro femme grab here and grab there of different elements of things that matter to me, and to create sort of a 2021 version.
Okay, yeah, no, I love that fact that you don't look at things, at least from what I could tell, by any kind of limit. It's more of like, what do I feel like doing? Okay, well then I'm going to incorporate it. And there's
Yeah.
really there's really no rules.
Yeah. I never really did well with rules either. So that it works for me.
Awesome. And so with your music background, it sounds like you've been involved with music and also just kind of performing and arts things all the way back to like when you were a child. So um, is it something that you're still doing now in terms of obviously music's at the forefront, but have you also been doing anything that's also considered artistic from a theater side or an acting side or anything else?
Yeah, I actually recently got into a little bit of voice acting, helping my friend with his cartoon that he finally is getting off the ground, and it's exciting because I grew up doing theater and really kind of used my voice in a lot of different ways as a kid, and so now coming back to it full circle and being able to dabble back into that is really fun for me. I feel like I have 7 or 8 different creatures that all take the mic at different times during the day. So giving them all a voice and a platform to speak is kind of cool.
Nice. And with the voice work that you're doing, do you have to play a certain type of character? So, like, do you have to change your voice a lot, or are you just using your natural voice?
The character's name is Crumb, and it's a baby chicken who's also part alien. And it's a different. It's more of like, hey guys, listen up. Like it's a little bit higher up, higher shelf than my normal range.
Oh, that's got to be fun. A long time ago, I worked as an audio engineer at a computer company, so we had a lot of voice talent that came
Uh-huh.
through. So I got to sit there and just be amazed by some of these people reading through scripts and things and doing all the voice work. And I just had to make sure I recorded it and didn't screw it up.
Well, it's such a fascinating world because it's different. It's to think about even when you're writing a song, if you're not able there to perform it for someone and bring that element of the visuals to it, you're really only given through their ears a chance to give them a message, um, and an image and create some sort of chords or melody that complement that message. And so with voice acting, it's yeah, there'll be an image after the fact, but in my head I'm imagining what this little creature looks like before it's actually been drawn.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And I know at least from some of the movie people that I've had a chance to talk to, when they've done voice work, it's just like what you're saying, that sometimes their own facial expressions as they're recording the voice work, that's what the
Yeah,
animators will work off of. It's, oh, look what you just did there. So that's what we're going to put into the character.
totally.
So that's got to be pretty cool. I'm sure that you're probably excited to see the finished product with that.
Yeah, I'm excited. It'll be fun.
Cool. And as during the introduction, we were playing the music video for "I'll Play Daddy," and so I'm curious about what is the story behind that song, but also the making of that music video, because it's really, really, there's so many different things that are going on in that video that I love.
Yeah, thank you. It was really cool. The video was shot by the Misfit Studios. They're a local film crew in Nashville, and I had this idea for I wanted them to come in the house, come up the stairs, find me. We'll go down the stairs. It's kind of create a day of all these different styles of daddy, or whether it's dominatrix or um, just sort of a boss kind of image, and with the different I loved them because they were able to incorporate all of my ideas into one. I wanted fire dancing. I wanted a choreographed hip hop dance. I wanted different angles, and I had a bunch of different images that they were really able to kind of hone into one fluid shot, I guess. So that was really fun. The song and the concept came from me kind of looking at our society's role play for people. And even though there's been this awakening of the feminine spirit and feminism in general, there's so much that's conditioned into us to believe what is come to daddy, or call me daddy. What does he look like? What does she look like? And when you really pull back those societal oppressions, you and dress them up in any way that you want to, you can kind of, there's so much more that you can do if you're able to see it in a different perspective, that you don't have to be a man to be daddy. You can be anything you want. So it's a little bit of a little tongue-in-cheek sexy approach at saying be who you want.
Well, that's a really powerful message, and I hope more people understand that's what you were going for with it. Because yeah, I think there are so many things. I've talked with some of my other guests about the same thing, about just from a societal standpoint or in any other kind of perspectives that you look at, you're getting conditioned at some point. I mean, you just
Yep.
are. And even if you're going through the public school system, you're getting conditioned by a certain thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
History. Like as a kid, I remember reading those books and doing the Native Americans and the Pilgrims sat down and they had this is going to go way too deep for a second, but we'd all be sitting together and having our Thanksgiving dinner. And it's like, actually, that's not how it really went. That's not the real story. We are so much as humans conditioned, as some people would probably think for the better of ourselves to, but the truth underneath all of it is really what matters. And when you kind of peel it back a little and say, like, women are for so long meant to be these cute little quiet things that didn't object or didn't speak up, and now things that the tables are turning. And so it's kind of playing off of that idea that it doesn't matter what gender you are, what race you are, what age you are, that you can play any role you want to play. It's just up to you and how you want to kind of operate in this matrix.
That's a very good way to put it, and I love that line of thinking, because it is something that if you don't start to question things, you'll just go along with whatever's presented to you or kind of put onto you, and if you don't kind of step back and kind of like, well, wait a minute, this isn't necessarily how it has to be.
Exactly.
That you can be this other position or have this other viewpoint, or just in terms of what you're doing with your own life, you don't have to do it by what these people or these societal pressures tell you have to do. It can go in a whole other direction.
Mm-hmm.
And
Free
yeah.
your mind. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can tell you, a complete transparency for me, by talking to a lot of folks like yourself, that's really helped me. It's helped me kind of also kind of see something. No, I never thought about it like that. And then I'm one of those people, I'll overthink things for a while. So I'll start looking at it after the fact, like even tonight or whatever. I'll start looking and researching things based on what we might say during this interview.
Totally.
But it absolutely helps me. And I'm always curious about other people's perspectives and trying to, even if I don't agree with it, I would like to at least know where they're coming from. And then I have something, more fact-based to base it off of, instead of just assuming something. So,
well, that's the consciousness that's going to change the world, is when you're willing to say, hey, wait a minute, what's that about? Or dig a little bit deeper. That's the elevation in our consciousness that's going really to shift things the way it's supposed to be. And that movement of the wayseers, of people who see things how life is supposed to be. And it's so much more harmony and so much more peace and so much more openness than we've been led to believe.
Yeah, again, very, very well said. I know for myself, it's been realizing that even if it's somebody who seems like they're maybe on opposite sides of an issue with me, if you actually talk to them, you're actually not that far apart if you're both willing to have respect and have an adult conversation about something, and not just point fingers and get personal attacks.
Mm-hmm.
But if you actually do those kind of things, it's like, oh, we actually have some things in common. I still may not agree with your viewpoint, but at least I know where it's coming from. And then sometimes maybe they'll learn something from where I'm coming from.
Right.
And then we start moving forward that way. So yeah, it's so strange, all the things you can start talking about, politics and government and, pharmacies and, all that kind of, all the big business stuff just starts trickling down into, we could be here all night talking
Yeah,
about.
I know, totally.
Hi, Captain Blackwood down in Las Vegas. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us tonight. I see. Oh yeah. Thank goodness it's Friday. Yeah, this is my Saturday for me because I work on Sundays. So this is a nice Saturday night or whatever you want for me. But yeah. So Juliet, when you're talking about your music and when we were just talking about for the last 5 minutes, it sounds like you have things that are very intentional with your lyrics. So I'm curious, how long does it tend? Like you were saying that you were, working on your songs during the pandemic and writing things, and you have a nice creative time basically to work on these. Is it something where you like it kind of comes to you and you can write it down and you're working pretty well, or is it like some of these songs took a long time to kind of get to where you wanted them to be?
I mean, I like I said, I kind of got lucky during quarantine of having that. A lot of people are like, well, just because you have the free time doesn't mean the creative juices are flowing. So whatever the case may be, those two things were parallel for me, having the free time and having a creative streak during the pandemic and during quarantine and continuing into the pandemic. But I think that um, it's been an interesting journey for me songwriting because I like to make sure I don't hold on to things too long. When I have the idea and it's or the melody's there and I'm working on some lyrics, I like to kind of dig into it and move on. I think it's easy for me as anyone is a critic of themselves is to get too hung up on perfecting this thing and then you end up leaving it in the kiln too long. So it's like, I think that a lot of times it's the melody that comes first. I'll be playing around with my guitar and then I'll look back at some lyrics I've been working on and things will start to flow that way. But usually I kind of like to brew it up and push it out as fast as possible.
Okay, kind of a little bit of striking while the iron's hot a little bit. And,
Totally.
okay, that makes sense. I need to get more like that with my own songwriting. I've been playing guitar for many years, and yeah, sometimes I'll get hung up and I can't get myself off of it. So, but then when it's working, then it's like, let's just keep working. So it doesn't matter if it's 2 a.m. I want to finish this thing because it's working right now, and I can tell it's working. So
Totally.
I don't want to like stop and then come back to it a day later and think, oh, now I'm back to the sludge, and it's not. I can't get back where I was.
Well, there's times where I'll be getting ready for either I'm getting ready for work or a lot of times doing something I don't really want to do, and a song will come to me or a melody will come to me, and that's kind of I blame being late on that a lot. Because I was writing, man. It was like, which doesn't always work for every scenario what you're showing up late for, but a lot of keeping a notebook by my bed or like a little scratch pad in my purse sometimes kind of helps to at least jot down the marker to come back to.
Yeah, I have something similar because I literally have a journal next to my bed, so that if I get that inspiration, I just fumble around and grab it with the pen.
Yeah.
Start writing stuff down.
When you're astral traveling, if there's something comes to you that.
Yeah, and sounds like we both have the same mindset that you got to grab it right then and there, because if you think, oh, I'll remember it later, no, won't necessarily remember it later.
Right.
And it's also interesting too that inspiration does strike at sometimes the oddest times. So yeah, it could make you late for work, or it could be making you like you were supposed to do something else, you forgot what that was because you're so too busy focused on capturing that creativity at the time.
Totally.
And you mentioned like you might have a melody, and then you have your guitar with you, and you come up with some chords. Is that primarily how you write? Is that the main instrument that you write with, is a guitar?
Yeah, I have a keyboard too, but I mainly write on the guitar. And my guitar skills are pretty limited. But I can get by with a few chords. So oftentimes I'll bring them then to my producer or my guitar player and I'll say, where do you hear this going? Like I'll sing a note that I don't necessarily know the guitar for if my theory on guitar is really limited. So I'll a lot of times I'll be like, okay, and then it's gonna go na 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 na, and he'll have the chord knowledge to be able to know where that might go. So I'm lucky to have a team of people around me that knows what they're doing.
Yeah, that's great. I'm flashing back to high school when our singer, who didn't have a music background but tried to do something like that, was like, I'm hearing this riff like this, and he would try to hum it to us, and we would never get it right. So it's all this back and forth, and he'd get upset with us after a while. It's like, look, man, maybe we should teach you guitar or something so that you can kind of figure this stuff out a little bit more, because we just wasted 2 hours trying to figure out what's in your head.
Trying to dissect the nanas from the nanas.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was like. Like, oh my gosh. And Ken, if you're watching this, I know you're still my friend and everything, and it sounds like you're doing pretty well down in Houston, luckily. But yeah, I'll never forget that. And Juliet, you were talking about that. You have the chords on the guitar are enough, and then if not, then you can take it to your guitar player, other people that you work, your producer, people that you work with. When you go back to when you were younger, so are you formally trained? Did you take lessons? What were you like as a kid growing up with music and the arts around you?
So I grew up on piano. My parents put me in piano lessons when I was 5 for about 10 years. And then I got into theater and I was in chorus. And then I got into poetry and songwriting, like right around 16, 17 years old. So I was always doing music and always doing some sort of performance. But I classically, as far as an instrument goes, I was only classically trained on piano. So I can still sit down and sight read. I'm not, I was going to say an aficionado. Is that the word that?
Yeah.
Okay. I wouldn't consider myself a piano aficionado now, but I definitely can still sight read, and that I'm grateful for that, because it's, reading music is such a older art. It's like writing in shorthand or writing letters. It's like, it feels like an older thing that doesn't really matter now. If you can hear it, you can hear it. If you've got a good ear, you can. There's so many tools around now, but I grew up playing piano classically.
Okay. And did you get to a point when you're as a teenager where you wanted to just focus on the music, so you stopped doing the theater stuff, or did you want to do all of it, or kind of what eventually pushed you towards music primarily?
It's hard to say. I always was drawn to music. It's the one thing that I was good at. I think I struggled in high school and went back to community college for a little while, and just to do a couple courses, and really had a problem getting through those too. And was just never really good at being a student. And so I don't know if it was that I was good at music, or that I was like, well, you don't have to, you don't have to study for this. But I think that I think I forgot the question, but.
Oh, I was just wondering, like, when did you kind of make music kind of the primary focus, because you were doing other things like theater and acting and that?
Yeah,
kind of...
right after high school, right when I realized I couldn't get into college. So, yeah, music I was always just drawn to. There was a sense of healing for me there, especially in my mid-20s when I stumbled into a bit of an opiate addiction. Music really came into fruition as my healing outlet, and where I could help. It felt like I was helping others, and can help others through an organic, really. Music goes so far back for so many people, connecting with other people and healing, and being able to reach out and reach people through something that is such a universal language, that you don't have to share the same anything, but that you can feel something through music equally. So.
Yeah, I'm seeing Captain Blackwood saying music has always been a healing power for any situation.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, no, I agree with that. And I see my friend Ken, who I was just talking about, is actually watching this. So you know what I'm talking about, Ken, when we were back in high school doing the band stuff. So Ken was our singer. But
Hey, Ken.
yeah, but yeah, I can totally relate that. In many ways, music saved my life. If it wasn't around, I don't know. I don't know if I would be here, or locked up, or dead. I don't know what would have happened to me. So.
Yep.
And
Same here.
it sounds like it got you through a really, really tough time.
It did, yeah. I definitely had a newfound awakening around music after an overdose, specifically, where I really felt it was the one thing that I could feel okay doing, and feel okay in my own skin. And so then I began writing, and it became like storytelling, and playing with other bandmates is a really has been special too, to almost like therapy, especially when you got musical chemistry there and you're really just flowing together. you're we're healing through music.
Yeah, and I'm just curious. As you know have that experience and you delve fully into music and everything that you've been doing, have you also used music as any kind of thing to help others that are maybe struggling with addiction issues or anything like that?
Totally, I'm pretty open about in when I perform and in my bio, and even in some of my songs, about my story and my history with addiction, and that my message has always been radical self-acceptance, and that no matter who you are or what you've been through, that you will be okay, and that you can be okay too. And it doesn't have to look perfect, and that it's not, it shouldn't, and that there's kind of a beauty in that in itself, to embrace you and your past and what you've been through as part of the lotus blossoming out of pond scum, essentially, of for each of us have that opportunity to build a foundation on what was, and everybody comes from somewhere.
Yes, they do. And everyone's got their own specific story, and everyone's had some times that maybe they weren't the best times, or sometimes they were the worst of times. And I'm just curious for yourself, what helped you uh, past your addiction? What helped you, get out of that hole?
I left the town that I was living in. I come from small New England town, um, outside of Boston, and a lot of times those seaside towns are um, have a lot of other dark things going on behind the baubles and lace of the seaside shanty kind of look. Um, but I overdosed. It scared me um, a lot, and so after that, I packed up my stuff and I ended up moving out to Wyoming, and got involved in bluegrass and the Tetons. I don't know if you know the mountain range in Wyoming, but
Hmm.
pretty magical. I swear that nature, a combination of music, nature, and mushrooms, really helped me get over a lot of things. So my recovery never looked really normal, but I definitely found a sense of peace in my own skin and in the world, and a way to get out of that life by diving into my music and diving into nature. And I was kind of given a second chance. So it was a real overload of gratitude for being alive.
Wow. Well, one, thank you for sharing that. And two, it sounds like, and I'm not an expert on recovery programs or anything like that, but it seems like some of them do incorporate nature, and they incorporate being outdoors and being outside and getting away from the city and all these other kind of things, so you can yeah, have Mother Nature kind of do their thing onto you.
Totally. Yeah, I got the powder snow in the mountains, and I got into skiing. I had no idea what I was doing. Even though I grew up skiing, I didn't really know that there's such a difference from the Wyoming mountains to my grandmother's backyard, kind of. But I fell in love with nature, and I fell in love with the universe all over again, and really started dabbling in music at that point on a deeper level, and found it all connected.
Okay, interesting. And from Wyoming, did that bring you to California, or what brought you eventually to Tennessee?
Yeah, from after Jackson, I was realized I kind of wanted a bigger net, or a wider, I guess, room. Not sure what I wanted more of, but a little bit broader of a music scene, I guess. So I moved to San Diego, and started singing backup for a Clapton and Cream tribute.
Hmm.
They still play. They're called Strange Crew. If any of my old Strange Crew bandmates are listening, what up? But I that's how I kind of picked up some rock and roll. I didn't ever know much about Cream. So I picked up that for a few years, and then began writing my first EP. And that's when I decided if I were going to really do it, I had to go for it. So I moved to Nashville from that point.
Okay. And sounds like a group I need to look into. Love, Cream, and Clapton from Captain Blackwood. Okay, well there you go. Yeah, Captain, go do a deep dive.
Yeah, Strange Crew.
And your first EP, I believe it was called Four, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so how does Four compare to Lead with Love? Was there a natural progression, or are they like night and day?
It's funny because it was recorded in a friend's garage, and he did a really good job with it, and it was really exciting little um, first first sort of piece of music that I had. Um, and it's definitely not as deep as my stuff now. I think my production level has gotten a little bit better. Um, so the definitely the combination of production and my material, the things I'm talking about, it's all a little bit deeper, a little bit grittier. Yeah.
Okay. Because I know one song, let me make sure I got that I was listening to was Slow Down, was really a wonderful song. And can you tell me what's going on with that song lyrically?
Yeah. So that was one of my first singles when I moved to Nashville that I put out. And it's really, as my progression, like as the progression of my music progressed, um, you can see that I start really from talking a lot about sexual, sensual, intimate moments. Like in Slow Down, I'm talking about being intimate with another person. And then if you see my discology or discography, it kind of changes into or grows into more stuff around love. Like Lead with Love is a lot more about social movements and coming together, regardless of skin color or age or race or all of that kind of encompass. It grew into more of a message of the heart, and more of a socially aware message versus just talking about sexy, fun things like in Slow Down, where it's much more skin deep.
Okay, all right. Well, um, when you're getting the songs together and then eventually releasing Lead with Love during last year, did you make a conscious decision like I'm going to put this out because it feels like I need to put it out now, or was it kind of like did you ever think about actually sitting on it for a little bit longer and see what happens with this landscape, or what was the thinking back then?
Well, for Lead with Love, it was actually we were right in the midst of the riots, and I felt like it was really appropriate timing. It at first I hesitated because I didn't want to come off as dystopian almost, to be using the times for a platform of music. I did not want to look not even pretentious, but tasteless, a little bit classless. And but I did feel that there was an intention to, for the first time since my other EP, I didn't have any, my first EP, I didn't think about the tracks, the release of the tracks and what those meant as far as a timeline. But with Lead with Love, I opened with Trouble, which was I dropped on July 3rd, and we're the day before we're supposed to be celebrating our nation, and I wasn't proud of America. It was a really sad time for us, and so I put out Trouble then intentionally, and then followed by Reach for Me, and the idea of sort of a climax in within the story of the EP release was supposed to be parallel to the times that we're dealing with.
Okay, so yeah, it sounds like things were very intentional. And I can relate even on a small level to what you were saying about that July 3rd time frame and the riots and everything going on, because that's when I was on the virtual tour with this band in LA called Alice. And there was times for the band and for myself when we were doing these live streams, I was kind of like, why are we doing this right now? It felt so inconsequential at times. It felt like we're doing something wrong at times because there's
Yeah,
so many heavy things going on outside in society. It's like we're doing this, but then we kind of came to realize that it's entertainment. It was something that was providing an escape for people. And,
totally.
but it took at least for me personally, it took a little while to get there where I could actually feel okay about, at 7 o'clock, Mark, you're going to be doing an interview with somebody every day. And um,
Yeah.
so I do understand from that standpoint of, what it could feel like back
Yeah,
then.
it was touchy, but also remembering that if we're artists, when we're supposed to be doing this, we're supposed to be sharing this. That if the real goal of music and creating is to connect others, and if that's the goal, and which I believe it is, then we need to be doing it during those times more than ever.
Very well said. And seeing Captain Blackwood saying heavy things were happening, and these shows helped lift the weight off of those that needed it. So,
100%.
and in many cases, I needed it. So,
Same.
yeah, it's like I can only drink so much alcohol.
I know I can only take so many bong rips.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, so have you always been independent artist musically,
Yeah. As opposed to what?
like being signed to like a major label or doing that whole kind of thing?
No, no label signs yet. But always pretty independent.
Okay. And I tend to gravitate towards independent artists. I love the fact that that's really the middleman's kind of gone. So like what they're
Yeah.
putting out there and how they're connecting is really what they want to have connected to their audience. And so to me, it's actually a plus when I find out someone's been doing all the work themselves and connecting people with, their music videos and all the work
Right.
that they do. So it sounds like you have a pretty good team around you. That you like to work with. So how did you end up meeting some of these folks that are helping you, do what you do?
What was cool about Nashville is it was so serendipitous, or kismet, I guess. One of my first jobs was working in an office, and I would go to pick up lunch from the Southern, and Derek Bat, it goes by the artist name Dito, was working behind the bar as a bartender at this place where I'd pick up lunch for the women in the office. And he said, "Hey, do you sing by any chance? I've seen you around." And I was like, "Yeah, I do actually." And he said, "Well, I need someone to sing on my rap song." And he invited me into the studio, and at first I was hesitant because I didn't know this guy, but I was really looking to make friends and looking to connect with the music scene. And that's where I met Pete, who produces all of my music. And so it was just by luck that I came in to sing a hook for this guy, and taking that risk and kind of trusting the universe a little. I ended up meeting Pete. And as far as my band goes, I was hanging out at a little club, little bar actually, and saw some people playing. And I asked the bartender, "What does it take to play?" And he sent my information to whoever booked there, and I started coming around more, and I ended up meeting my drummer, and um, met my guitar player, and it happened so organically. It's hard to believe that it is real, just because when you put out the intention, I'm a firm believer in law of attraction, and believing that you already have what you want, and kind of treating people the way you want to be treated. It's all an energetic whirlpool, I guess. So I believed when I came here that I would find my band, and I'd find my network and kind of my tribe, and I got lucky.
That's awesome. And it's such a good feeling when you find those people, when you do find your tribe.
Hmm.
They're kind of like, where have you been?
Yeah, totally, totally. Good to
I've
see
been
you
looking,
again.
yeah, I've been looking for you for years.
Uh-huh.
And I'm a big energy believer too, that what you put out is what eventually comes back to you. And when you're trying to do things the right way or trying to do things in a positive way, that, like in your case, yeah, it's also just kind of putting yourself out just as a person too, because if you're looking to connect with a music scene, let's say like down in Nashville, if I'm trying to do it here in Seattle, and if you're not comfortable doing that, some part of you's got to put yourself a little bit out there and then a little bit more out there. And that's how you start making the connections with people. Otherwise, they'll just kind of walk by you, and you never know that that's one of the greatest musicians ever until you maybe try to talk to them.
Totally.
Oh my gosh! So that's awesome, though. That you've done all these things, and yeah, good things sound like they're happening in Nashville. So I'm assuming you're probably planning on growing your roots more in Nashville and expanding upon things career-wise there.
Yeah, yeah. I'd like to see what happens as they begin to manage the pandemic. When that takes place, I'd love to see that so that we can actually move into a place of planning touring and larger scale shows. It's for me right now, it's a combination of sort of staying hopeful and staying positive, but also being a little patient. Because I've been working as hard as I can on the back end to create new music and to create the content, but I'm really looking forward to being able to tour again. And, you know, I mean, I never got to tour to begin with, so it would be touring for the first time, but to be able to be planning those bigger shows and be able to have that audience engagement would be really nice.
Yeah, no, I as we were talking pre-show, I can't wait for that to happen, and it'll be great if you and the band can put all the gear into a 15-passenger van or whatever you use and hit the road and start.
Yeah, even like one-offs to go to Memphis or, head down to Atlanta. It would be Nashville's such a good spot for being able to kind of branch out for a couple shows instead of a full loaded tour. So that could be on the horizon as well, hopefully.
Yeah, I was thinking about there's an artist that was from, I don't think she's based there anymore, but she was originally based in Louisiana, and then she made her first trip up here to Seattle, and she was like, I went through all through Texas and the Southwest and went up the West Coast and all that kind of thing. And on one hand, she loved it. On the other hand, she's like, now we got to go all the way back. And it was something that I just thought it was awesome that she was driving around in like some sort of pickup truck with her and like two band members, but they made it work. And I can't wait till we get back to those kind of days.
I can't hear you.
Oh, check. Can you hear me now? 1, 2, check. 1, 2. Check. Oh, and you just went off. So let's see.
Oh,
here.
There we go.
Check.
Sorry. Yeah.
No problem. Technology.
I know. Can you jump back 30 seconds?
Sure. I would just mention that there was an artist that was originally based from Louisiana that did the whole trek through Texas, Southwest, went up the West Coast, got up to Seattle, and it was awesome talking to her and everything. And then she was like, yeah, but we didn't plan this right because now we have to go back down and we didn't book enough gigs to get back down to Louisiana.
Oh, no.
So it's just kind of like a nice scenic road trip back.
Honestly, that sounds like an indie movie.
Yeah, and she's still doing music now. I just saw her stuff, so she hasn't given up because of that trip. But I think they just said it was a learning process of
I bet,
of making sure you have all those. And then the band that I was on tour, virtually on tour with Alice, they do the kind of the 2-week thing, and they're based in LA, so they'll go out so far and then come back, and then maybe go up the west, and then sometimes even do 4 weeks, and they drive around in a van and do the whole thing, and they're completely independent too. So
that's a dream for me. I really believe in a lot of like kind of flying by the seat of your pants in a way and letting the magic of spontaneity happen. And I know that planning a tour wouldn't be so spontaneous, but I love the idea of walking into a place and being like, hey, we have an extra day in this town. Let's see if we can get a gig here, or see if I just like that whole magic of traveling with your band fam. And that's so appealing to me. So put it out into the universe for me.
Yeah, no, I hope it happens for you and happens for all the independent artists that want to get out on the road and bring their music to the people.
Totally.
That's what it's all about.
Totally.
So, Juliet, what can we expect in the next say 3 to 6 months? What's coming out from you? New music singles?
So I put out two versions of Tal Bachman's "She's So High." I just put those out last week and the week before. So you can find those on Spotify and YouTube under Juliet Hawkins. And then I have an original coming out on my birthday, March 20th, featuring Jimmy Vivino. And it's kind of a little bit of a retro vintagey waltz vibe, and kind of that Motown feel. And I'm really excited for that. And then I have another song coming out a month after that. So I'm shooting for what I did last year, which was try and put out a song each month. But my big goal for this year would be to cut a live album. So yeah.
Oh, awesome! I would love to hear a live album from you.
Yeah.
And I know just from watching some of and we can talk about this too. You've done a couple of live stream shows with your band, and it also, I think I saw something where, correct me if I'm wrong, but was Lead with Love? Did your band record those tracks live?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can see that. Did you watch the Hello TV live stream?
I did.
Yeah, so there's that, but then we also the actual tracks for Lead with Love, we did record that live. That's cool. You got to pick that up.
Awesome. Yeah, I love I love hearing things that are organic musically. In these days of auto tune and everything else that can try to pitch correct every freaking note, it's just like, let's get a band that can actually play, that's put in the time.
Yeah.
And just let them blow like a live band.
Well, I know, instead of having all these like knickknacks and paddywhacks and all the extra magic that people put, this black box, what it's like that they put on stage or whatever, the voice machine, it's what happened to the magic of talent, or the magic of grooving or jamming when you're really in the pocket with your band. Everything nowadays is so nipped and tucked, and I think that there's something really appealing, at least to me, about that raw live sound.
Yeah, here. I'm in the same boat. I would much rather hear even a live band that's going to make mistakes over something that's so freaking robotic at some point that it just loses all of its human aspect to it.
Totally.
And also, just from a musician side, it's like, go woodshed, learn your instrument.
Yeah, exactly.
If you can't play it quite right, then yeah, go practice somewhere. That's what people used to do.
Yeah, right.
Instead of having these tools that will just magically fix you, and then when you hear them live, you go, "Oh my gosh!"
You're like, "Who is this guy?"
Yeah, why are they flat all the time when they're singing, or
Right.
what have you? And as we kind of touched on the live stream concert piece, how was that for you doing live streams? Because I know it's the only way that people can connect in most parts of the world with their audience is doing a live stream concert. How was that when you actually did those shows?
Well, the Hello TV one was really cool because those are all previous roadies and lighting and sound for people like Godsmack, and they came together as crew and started this company that, using all of that equipment, the lights and the high-end cameras, that they made it look like you're doing a performance at a venue, which was really cool, having that kind of footage for content. But truthfully, the live streaming is nothing like a real, even if you're imagining, you have a great mind and can imagine all the people there, it's a different vibe, obviously. It's the difference of playing live or not. There's something that you gain energetically, I think, from having an audience. So live streaming is like, it's a nice way to stay relevant, but energetically it's not as easy to access that that magic, I guess, as it is when you have a real audience.
Okay, yeah, and that makes sense. That it's kind of like the best we can do for now.
Totally.
Kind of almost like a placeholder in a way. It's like, hey, at least I can still check out a band. And what's kind of nice, depending on how many live streams an artist does, is that if you're a fan, you might be able to see them do 20 shows, which maybe you couldn't do in real life.
Right.
Unless you're like, following them around like the Grateful Dead or something, or Rush.
Yeah, it's the beauty of technology. I think that's a really neat thing, that people are able to still feel somewhat connected and still be able to, I guess, feel connected.
Yeah, for sure. And Gosh, I had one other thing I wanted to ask before I was wrapping this up, and I just had a brain fart, and I don't remember what it was. But so that most people out there know when I do my interviews, I just have some topics. So I just try to riff off the topics. I don't have specific questions written down like a big laundry list of that kind of thing. And seeing what Captain Black would put this quote from Pete Townsend: "Why tune up in the dressing room when you can tune up in an audience? So much more fun, you know. You bore them all to tears." From Pete Townsend in 1970 from the Who, I should say, the Whole. I know what it was. It's just a kind of a strange thing, but so the live stream it was actually called from Hello. It has the three O's.
Yeah, Hello TV.
Okay, I didn't know if it was like hello, you know, like some from there's a film called City Slickers from way back when, and that's what they go hello.
It kind of is. I think it's up to interpretation.
Okay, and the other thing too is, do you have any plans? And I know it's expensive and hard to do for a lot of artists, to put any of your music out in a physical format, either vinyl or CD, even cassette. Some people are doing.
Honestly, the dream, which I should just speak into fruition, or existence, is to have that live album done on vinyl.
Oh, awesome.
That would be the dream.
Well, I hope that dream becomes a reality.
Thank you.
Yes, I love physical. I like having tangible things. I'm one of those people.
Me too.
I only listen to streaming things because usually out of necessity, because that's the only way for me to hear something. If there's a way for me to buy it and have it, you know, mailed to me or whatever, then I'm actually gonna do that. So I hope that happens with your live album.
Thank you. Me too.
Yeah, well, Juliet, thank you so much for taking the time tonight. This was awesome. Getting a chance to talk with you and learn more about you and what you're doing. I really love everything that you got going on. So I wish you every success, and perhaps down the road, if that live album comes out, or you have a few more singles in the springtime, we can reconnect and do a part 2 and see where you're at that time.
Yeah, I'd love that, Mark. Thank you so much for listening to my stuff and taking the time to talk to me. And if and when I can make it out to Seattle on a little mini tour, maybe depending on the time, I'll say hi.
That would be awesome, and I hope that happens sooner than later.
Me too.
All right. Well, stay safe down in Tennessee, and have a good night and a good weekend.
Yeah, thank you so much. Stay safe.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.